Hey everyone, I'm Danny and welcome to Photoshop Wizardry.
Expecto Patronum!
Welcome to another design lesson. Last month we did fonts, so it was fantastic fonts and where to find them, and I showed you where you could find tons of different fonts. If you don't know, this series of design lessons is focused on how to design things like the Harry Potter movie props. So we're not going to be using the Harry Potter logo fonts and anything like that. We want to make things that look like they came directly out of the movie, like the Daily Prophet or the Quibbler or like the Weasley's Wizard Wheezes stuff. So yeah, that's what we're doing in this design lesson series. This is basically a shorter version of the full lesson. There's a lot more to go over other than what I go over in this video. So if you want access to the full version, it's going to be over on Patreon and it is exclusive for patrons. So if that's something you want to watch, I'm posting a new video every month that's a design lesson all focused around Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. In this video, we're going to be going over clip art and borders, and it was really hard trying to come up with a clever title. After I did fantastic fonts and where to find them, I figured every lesson needs to have a clever title like that, something like that. I went with Secrets of the Darkest Clip Arts, which is a parody of a book from the Harry Potter movies called Secrets of the Darkest Art, and it's where Voldemort learned how to do his Horcruxes. However, we're also going to go over borders in this too because they're just so similar, like the method on how I find them and things like that. It's the exact same thing. There was a runner-up though. I did take to Patreon, actually to my Discord, but on the patron channel, and I went there and I was like, I really need some help coming up with a title. And there were so many good ideas there, but I was really close to using a specific one, the Border of the Phoenix. So I just want to thank Albus Severus Potter on Discord, he's a patron, for helping come up with that title. I was really close to using it, but I decided on Secrets of the Darkest Clip Art because this video is really going to be mainly focused on clip art. Borders are part of that, but yeah, it's really a clip art video. So anyways, let's get into this. So just like before, we're going to continue our Quibbler cover replica. And as you can see, I have a folder right over here called text. So if I had the Quibbler layer, you can see I've been adding in the different fonts and things right here. So that's from the last design lesson video. I've still got a few more to go, but I know which ones they are, and I'm not in a huge hurry for that. But let's go over where to find the clip art. So believe it or not, this was not drawn by Mina Lima. I thought that it would have been. Lots of this stuff I thought would have been drawn by Mina Lima, but it's actually not. It is clip art. So if you open up your browser and go to doverpublications.com or doverbooks.co.uk, I don't really know what the difference of these two is, except that one is from the US and the other is in the UK, and they also have different. They have a different catalog. Like if you search for something on one site, you might not find it, but if you search for it on the other, you will find it. So it's kind of confusing. But yeah, if you want to get your books faster and you're from the US, go to doverpublications.com. And if you don't mind waiting, or if you're from the UK, go ahead and use doverbooks.co.uk. So Mina Lima actually did use tons and tons of clip art from Dover Publications. And I'll show you what I mean. If we just go up to the search bar and search for banners, then you'll see we've got some results here. And this book right here, we'll take a look at it. You can see these scrolls and banners and things. This one in particular right here, it just looks so familiar. But yes, I have looked through this book and it does include like all the banners they used for like Quibblers and stuff like that is all inside this book. So if you purchase this book, you'll be able to get that. Unfortunately, there is no digital version. Some of them do have digital versions, but they're not very high resolution. I mean, they look okay, but they're not the best. So really, you want the physical book and you want to scan it in, and that's how you're going to get a hold of this stuff. So keeping that in mind, if now you go to clipart.com, it doesn't look, I mean, it looks like, you know, just your average kind of generic photo clip art website. However, they have a bunch of Dover clip art. It's not free. You do need an account. As you can see, I am now logged in here. And once you're logged in, you can download, I believe, something like 35 images per day. But here's the big secret with clipart.com. If you go to clipart.com/doverlist.php, and I will link that in the description box, here is the Dover Publications book list, and they have tons and tons of Dover books in here. Yeah, it would take forever to go through all this stuff because there's so much. They don't have everything, but they do have some certain ones that are really, really useful, such as right here they have banners, ribbons, and scrolls, and that's the one that we just looked at. So now we can take a look at all these different little banners, and so far we're not seeing anything too familiar, but if you keep looking, so now here's one that looks very familiar. I'll open this one up in a new tab, and there it is. And we can download this at 2859 by 2249 pixels, definitely large enough. Yeah, if you don't recognize this, it's actually from the Quibbler. I have a reference image of the actual page, which I have open right here. So if we take a look, you can see, I mean, when we get closer, you can see this isn't that good of quality, but right up here, you can see it is the exact same clip art. And I've already downloaded that one. So if we grab this and drag it in here, it is exactly the same. So if I change the layer style to multiply over here, and then we can move it, and you can see it is the exact same image. There is absolutely no difference. All they did was color it. All right, there we go. So now we've got it pretty much lined up right there. The hands here and here, down here, these are also clip art, but they are also a font. I own that font. I guess I could have mentioned it in the previous video. Did I mention it in the font video? I can't remember. But the font is called Archive Hands. And these hands are in there, as well as a whole bunch of other pointing hands. Okay, so those are the banners and stuff, so that's all cool. But there's one thing that we want, and that is the main clip art on this Quibbler cover. And I was able to find that. So we're going to go to Vintage Mortised Cuts for this. Open that up in a new tab. Now in this book here, there's a lot of cool stuff. And I believe me and Alima used more than just one thing in here. But there's, I mean, if you look through it, there's some things you might recognize. But we're going to go all the way to the last page, because I know exactly where the one is that we want since I've already found it. And we're going to scroll down, and it's almost the last image right here. We'll click on that one, and there he is, or there they are. Now if we go back to Photoshop, you'll see that is the exact same image right here. And I've already downloaded it. I've got it open right here. I'm going to do Control-A, Control-C, or actually Control-Shift-C just to be safe. That makes sure that you select everything you see. And then we're going to go back to the cover, and we are going to paste this in, Control-V. I'm going to resize this so that it, you know, is right over that clip art. But I'm going to name this Talking Heads, I guess. And then I'm going to Control-T, which is going to allow me to scale down. And right now I am holding Shift and Alt as I scale. You might not have to do that depending on your settings in Photoshop, but if you do, Shift and Alt will scale uniformly toward the center of the image or wherever you have your focus point, basically. So what I do is I'm just going to line up one of these ears on this guy, or anywhere you want really, and then Alt-click, and you can see now I have that reference point that was in the center, and I'm going to put it right there on his ear, where I have made sure that it lines up properly. And then if I grab one of these corner squares, click, hold Shift and Alt and scale, now it's scaling in toward that point instead. So now all I need to do is scale it so that everything kind of lines up, and it looks like it needs to be rotated a tiny bit too. So if I rotate, it's also going to rotate from that point. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Looks like we'll scale a little bit. And right now I'm just trying to line things up. I think it might be actually kind of stretched a little bit too. So we're going to stretch it a tiny bit right there. There we go. And we're going to stretch it a little bit this way too. Okay, yeah, now it's starting to line up. It is now almost perfectly lined up. I'm good with that. So we're going to click the check box, and now we have our clip art in there for the Quibbler. And now it's time to really make it look like it does here. And as you can see, they are wearing hats. And unfortunately, I don't think those hats are clip art. I think those were drawn on by MinaLima. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a new layer, zoom in, and I like to go over here and grab like a blue or some other brighter color so I can see where I'm actually drawing. If I'm using black, you can't really see it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get my brush tool and make the brush point a bit smaller so that I can do a little more detailed lines. And we will hide my talking heads layer just so that we can see the hats a little bit better. So we've got our empty layer here, and now I'm going to draw the hats on these people. And as you can see, the cover art is starting to come along. If we take a look at, here's the Quibbler cover art, and here is our replica cover art. It's starting to come along pretty well. And that is the clip art section of the video. Wow, that was a long clip art section. So now let's go back to clipart.com/doverlist.php, and we're going to go into borders now. And the method is pretty much exactly the same as clip art. If we go down here, there is a section called 372 frames and borders. So let's open that up. And we've got all these old vintage borders. And if you scroll through here, you're going to end up seeing things that you might recognize, or things that are very similar to things you've seen in MinaLima's designs in the Harry Potter props. Okay, so right here we have this one. It's very simple. It's just a double border. But MinaLima used a lot of these double borders like this on things like the Quibbler has a border around all the pages, so you might use something like this to recreate that border if you can't find an exact match. And also a lot of the like Daily Profit ads and things really just use these simple borders like this. So let's go ahead and download this one. And there we go. You can see it's not perfect, and that's what we're looking for. This is why we're not recreating this with perfect vectorized lines that are perfectly straight, because then it doesn't look as authentic. You want something that looks imperfect, because a lot of times borders like this, in vintage borders and stuff, when they were actually made and created by like the person who actually did this, they usually drew it by hand, or it's like a woodcut thing, or you know, whatever. If we open up this and look at it, it does use that double border, and the border isn't perfect. If you get it the right size, you could use this border to kind of piece together and recreate the Quibbler border. But I'm sure you'd be able to find this exact border that they used somewhere, probably in a Dover book. But let's go back to our browser and look a little further down. This type of border here I have seen. It might not be this exact one, but I've seen something like this used on like the Fantastic Beasts stuff. Like the ID card has something similar, not exact, but similar to this. I feel like I've also seen this border somewhere too. If you guys recognize any of these things, let me know. And right here, this is page 7. This little hand is here. You can get that other places, but Yeah, this was used on a Weasley's Wizard Wheezes prop. I also recognize the border next to it right here. These two things I recognize. This type of thing was used in the Fantastic Beasts movies a lot, like the dots and the squares and stuff. They used that in a lot of the props for like the Makusa. The Makusa stuff used this a lot. And that is it for this free version of the lesson. If you want the full lesson where I go into a lot more detail and a lot more techniques on how to create these replicas and where to find the assets, that is a patron-only video. I'll be posting those once a month on Patreon. Also, if you're not subscribed to Photoshop Wizardry, go ahead and subscribe below. I'm going to be posting all of my tutorials on like graphic design tutorials right here on Photoshop Wizardry. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.